We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Stop.
Well, happy Monday to everybody, because it's my favorite day of the week. And I want to welcome you to the Born to Talk radio show. I'm your host, Marsha Wietecha. Happy to have you joining me today with my guests. I have a full group of people here because this show is really about conversations and connections, which equals community. And we are in community today. So what's your story? I mean, I certainly care about that because everybody has one. So let me take just a moment to introduce you to all of my guests today at the table. Sitting to my right is Christina Miller. Christina Miller is from LAX, Lawwise we like to call it, and we'll be talking. She's the project manager on homeless issues. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okie dokie. And sitting next to her is my favorite kid. His name is Simon Boschetto. That I do. Perfect. Because I knew if I put my fingers like this, I explained to me I could say your name right finally. Boschetto. It sounds like something you should be eating with some with a piece of basil and some mozzarella cheese. Yeah. And next to him is my son from another mother, as I said. I'm so happy that your mom Carol has shared you with me, and that's Russell Boschetto. Welcome, Russ.
Thank you so much for having us.
I'm delighted to have you as a return guest. I've been doing this long enough that I'm starting to get repeats, and it's been about a year since they were with me on the show, and I'm so happy to have you both back. And what I thought we could do is, and Simon, what we're going to talk about when the microphones, as you know, when it's your turn to talk, your mouth needs to be by the microphone. Voila. Okie dokie. Let's start off a little bit by just having you all introduce yourself and saying a little bit about yourself. And since Simon, you're the youngest person at the table, I thought we'd start with you. Why don't you tell the people maybe that didn't listen to our first show just a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for letting me be on your show today. I am 10 years old. I go to Lucille J. Smith Elementary School, and I'm in 5th grade.
You're in the 5th grade. Okay. And why aren't you in school today?
Thanksgiving break.
Oh, too bad, huh? You just want to be in school, don't you? Really? No. Not so much. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here. And, you doodle away when it's not your turn to talk. It's okay with me. You still have a pen? Oh, your dad took your pen. Okay. All right. And so speaking of your dad, sir, Mr. Russell, tell our listeners, there's so much to you. But I could do your introduction, but I'd like you to go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Quite honestly, you'd probably do a better introduction than I would of myself. A lot of people, they say, well, so what do you do? And I tell them I'm a father and I'm a husband, and that about sums it up. Because I feel that if I'm excellent at those two jobs, my job is done. And so that pretty much sums me up in a nutshell. And I try to do that to the best of my ability every day.
Well, Carol, if you're watching live or if you're going to come back and watch it later, we both would agree that your son is truly an excellent father and a husband. And
thank you.
It's true. All right. So Share Hope USA, there's 3 of us in here all wearing these shirts, sharehopeusa.com. And people might wonder, well, what exactly does that mean? What is Share Hope USA? And I thought, because Si, you're the reason that this whole thing got started. Why don't you tell our listeners what is Share Hope USA and how did it get started?
Well, Share Hope USA is an organization to help the homeless, and we help many other things too, like the Children's Hospital and homeless as we do. And Share Hope USA was made 2 years ago because I knew that something in the world had to be changed, and I thought I could change it.
What happened? What was it that made you realize that there needed to be some help for homeless people? Was there a certain incident that happened that sort of sparked that interest for you?
Well,
Do you remember the man?
yeah.
Okay, so so that sort of started it, didn't it? When you saw the man standing by the freeway,
Yeah.
and what was he doing?
He was holding a cup saying, "Please help me."
Right,
And I wanted to give him $1, but I couldn't. We passed him already.
right. And you were 8 years old,
Yes.
but you had that sense, didn't you, that you wanted to help that man?
Yes.
And is that how this started for you? Did you see that? Have you seen other homeless people in your community and wondered about how they were eating or where they were staying? Or
Yeah.
you did, and is that how this all started for you?
Yes.
I think it's admirable. Were you afraid to talk to homeless people?
Well, before I even started this organization, I could walk up to someone and say, "Hi, I'm Simon," and I'd shake their hand. And so I guess,
That felt natural for you, didn't it?
yeah.
Do you recognize that there are many adults that might not be able to do that, let alone kids that are
Yes.
8 years old?
Yes.
Yes, that makes you really special. But what I find so appealing about you and inspiring about you is how humble you are, Simon.
Thank
You
you.
just don't see yourself as a big deal. But because of you, Simon, I not only have joined your organization as a board member, but I've brought in friends. I live in this community. We're going to be talking about Manchester Square. And I have brought junior high school friends into this organization to also support what you do. And it's because of you and your inspiration and your way, Simon, your way of talking to people, whether it's the people, the dogs, the volunteers. You are a special young man, and I am privileged.
Thank you.
Really.
I agree.
He is. I know you're proud of him.
Yep.
What's Share Hope been up to, Russ, since we last were together a year ago?
We've been doing a lot. We try to always be involved in something, and so of course we have our monthly outreach events that we do. We have a street team where we kind of load up items in carts and take them to the areas where most people don't see because they're unseen from the streets. And then we have regular feeding where we feed 200-300 homeless people, and these are big feedings. They're hot meals. That's where we have haircuts, and we have dog grooming, and we try to bring all the resources to help a homeless person have a good day.
Right.
And so we do that. We have the Play-Doh drive, which we'll talk about a little bit later. For us, we're kind of we're only 2 years into it, and we're still in the growing stage. And for us, and it's really the most important thing, is to find as many connections as we can, meet as many people as we can, develop relationships with really key organizations and people, so that way we can
partner up.
So we can take what we're trying to do at a
Sure.
small scale now and make it larger and bigger and help more people. And that's really what we're trying to do. Help as many people as you can. As many times as you can,
Right.
and so that's kind of what we're trying to do. That's been the blueprint from the very beginning, and it's worked, and there's no reason to change it. Just can we scale it a little bit?
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking very much about this entire show, about a particular area that's not far from this studio. So for those of you that are not from the Los Angeles area, we are in the city of Los Angeles. Westchester is a community, much that I used to call and still feel like Mayberry. Westchester is a community within Los Angeles. About 41,000 people that live in Westchester currently. When I grew up just east of here in a location called Manchester Square. I didn't even know, frankly, that that's what that was called. I mean, we never recalled it. We lived in Manchester Square. We said we lived in Westchester, and I went to 98th Street School, and I lived on 99th Street, and that's where my parents bought their home. It was a very modest community back then. They were new homes when my parents bought the community. In the community, but that community has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
I saw it changing even as I was living there and going to high school, and airports airplanes got larger. They needed bigger runway space, and so from where I lived, about as far east as you can go in the city of Los Angeles, all the way to the Playa del Rey and up to the ocean, houses were being removed even while I was in school because they needed to be to expand. But now what we have found is that we have really an encampment there. And Christina, that's where you come in, because this is really important to what you do, because you are the project manager representing the airport. And I thought you could talk a little bit about what it is that you do.
Yeah, sure. So just a little bit about my background. I kind of stumbled into homeless services about a decade ago. I was on my way to get my degree in counseling, and in 2008, and the Great Recession hit, and my husband lost his job. He worked in construction, and here I was about to start my education when I realized I need to go get a job. So I stumbled across an agency called LA Family Housing. They're a large private nonprofit in the Valley, and I became a homeless case manager. Mm-hmm. I had my background in psychology, and it was an entry-level job. And I basically, gave away the idea of going into counseling and fell in love with homeless services. Wow. And really felt like this calling to social justice. Mm-hmm. And so, I started in the front lines of the work, doing mental health social work, working in a shelter setting, working with outreach teams, and eventually, kind of grew up with that agency and became a project manager, oversaw some community organizing efforts to really rally a bunch of different stakeholders together around this issue of homelessness, which every community cares very deeply about in some way or another. And no one is for it. No one is for homelessness. So
of course. Yeah. And it's not just a Los Angeles or Valley issue. Homelessness is everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah. It's a regional issue that needs regional solutions.
Exactly. And I know that in certain parts of the country where weather is so brutal, their homeless situation is slightly different than ours. Not that we haven't certainly had our weather issues here too, but people migrate to where the weather is a little bit more where you're outside and maybe you can tolerate it. Have you found that to be true?
Well, that's really interesting. I'm really happy you brought that up. I was hoping part of the show we could talk a little bit about some misunderstanding.
Right.
Yeah. So by and large, what the data shows us about the homeless people who are homeless in Los Angeles County is that they are Angelenos. They are from Los Angeles for the most part.
Interesting.
I will say there are pocket communities such as Santa Monica, Hollywood, where certainly people came here and they were looking for an opportunity, right? Like they moved here for a better life, and something didn't work out along the way, and they became homeless. Certainly that is for those specific communities, but in different communities, like communities in the Valley or
Orange County.
I mean, those are folks who lived there and just couldn't make it work anymore and didn't want to go too far. They stayed to where they knew was familiar.
Right.
So just to bring it back to the airport and kind of where I fit in on this, I joined LAX in April, and because they recognized that there was an issue going on in the area known as Manchester Square, where a very large encampment had grown. And this was really because there was a lot of land. It was vacant.
Right.
And you kind of, growing up there, you can't just stumble across Manchester Square.
You would be deliberate to go into Manchester Square.
Yeah.
You could drive down Aviation, or even Arbor Vitae, or La Cienega, or Century Boulevard, which are the barriers of Manchester Square. But unless you had a call to go into the community, like you wanted to go see that elementary school, unless you live there,
you never know it's
you
there.
wouldn't even know that it's there. Absolutely not.
In fact, when the encampment was at its largest, 400 or 500 homeless people at one point.
Right.
There's still people that never knew it was there. They just drove by every day.
Right,
and
were totally unaware of it. Yeah. Well, we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about Manchester Square, what you do in relationship to it, what Share Hope does in relationship. We're going to take our first break, and we're listening to what? We listen to, Simon. What is this? Come on, isn't this the song you told me about? Isn't this Kiwi?
Oh, this is the Pixies again.
We're hearing the Pixies again. So sorry. Well, that was a mess up. So Pixies in, Pixies out. We can deal with that. Let that be our only problem. Let that be our only problem today, right, folks?
Right. Count our blessings.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back, everybody.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Marsha Wietecha inviting you to join me every Monday, 11 a.m. Pacific, for Marsha's Music Shuffle. My show features music from the 60s and beyond, bringing you artists and songs that touch us in so many ways with lyrics, rhythm, and voices. Put your dancing shoes on and join me every Monday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific, for Marsha's Music Shuffle, exclusively on latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Del Lady Jones, and I'm a certified relationship and divorce coach.
And I'm Debbie Carlin Boyle, a certified personal trainer, fitness instructor, and health coach.
Join us on Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Pacific, for Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul, and everything in between, exclusively on LA Talk Live.
Become part of the conversation with expert guests discussing life-changing topics such as relationships, divorce, longevity, parenting challenges, dating, intimacy, and so much more.
We would love to hear your opinions and questions, either on our Facebook page or by calling us directly at 323-473-3100. We are Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul, and everything in between. Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Pacific on latalklive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, and now live on Facebook, or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. And now on our YouTube channel, Del and Debbie Mind, Body, Soul. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Okay, so we're back with a really cool song that, Russell, I think it was a song that you wanted me to select. It's called Captain Harley by the Bash Dogs.
Yeah.
And there's a story about that?
Yeah, well, the Captain Harley is an actual homeless person that lives in Huntington Beach, on the beach, and the Bash Dogs is a local band that they're up and coming, and they found a relationship with him. They helped him a lot. So they contacted us about a year ago and said, you know, we have this homeless guy that we want to do a benefit concert for, and we want to split the procedures to him and to Share Hope. So we did a benefit concert, and half of the proceeds that they got from that actually went to him, and half of it went to Share Hope, and it was a great event. And we're actually thinking about maybe doing another one this year, and seeing if we can even do a little bit bigger.
I'm always so impressed with the relationships that are built with people all working towards the same efforts.
Yeah.
It's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
Speaking of Manchester Square, I should have done the maybe you know the answer. I don't know. I don't know how many people were living there when I was a kid, because we had single homes, and then in the peripheral around the outside, which was ISIS, which is kind of funny because who knew that ISIS meant anything but ISIS, where I grew up, had a whole different meaning many, many years later. But ISIS had duplexes. Linda Leroy lived on ISIS. Then ISIS was, there was also duplexes on Glasgow and that part of Westchester. So I don't really know. Do you know how many people at the heyday lived in that community? Because I don't.
Oh gosh, I wish I had. The answer.
I don't know the answer to that. But we were a great community of people with one little elementary school, and we had to take a school bus to Westchester High School because we were more than 5 miles away. And progress happens. I don't know if maybe you're aware of this, but where that Hertz Rent-A-Car place is on Arbor Vitae and Airport Boulevard, right across from the post office. That was where our junior high was located. That's where Airport Junior High was located. So there's been the airport has been a very integral part. When I was a kid, you had to close the door, otherwise you couldn't hear the TV because the airplanes were flying over our heads.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm learning when I stepped into this role. As to, a lot of people ask, why are there no homes in Manchester Square?
Right.
Why is it this big vacant area, and what is the airport going to do?
Exactly.
And so what I've learned over time is that basically over the last few decades, like you said, there was a pretty large community there. And it was deemed, because it was in the flight path and because of noise, that it was not a place that was suitable for residential living any longer. It just couldn't be zoned for that purpose anymore. And so the airport embarked on this effort to work with the people who lived in the community to buy back the homes, or even relocate some, like physically relocate some of the properties. And so this has been going on for decades. And even as they were doing it in the beginning, they had no plan for what to do with the land. They didn't really know. It's only until recently that it's become part of a large capital project called LAMP, which stands for Landside Access Modernization Program. So and it's part of this bigger effort to make the airport better, make it more modern, really transform the experience people have now of going to LAX, which is, I think it's safe to say, it can be a little stressful.
It can be a lot stressful.
little traffic.
Because there's been a lot going on. I mean, I must say, it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
We're going to have Mark, who's also from LAX, on the show in December, and he's director of communication. And we're going to be talking about some of the things, the improvements at LAX. Things have changed so dramatically. There was a time where you could make a quick run to LAX from my house to Southwest and back in 15 minutes.
Well, it's now the second
Not
busiest
anymore.
airport in the country and the
Yes.
fourth busiest airport in the world. So it has definitely changed, and the infrastructure hasn't really changed with it fast enough. So Manchester Square is going to be the site of a consolidated car rental facility.
All right.
And it's also going to be where the APM, or Automated People Mover, which is this train, this free train that's going to run right into the center of the terminals.
Interesting.
And any LAX passengers can use it. They can park at the rental car facility in Manchester Square and take the train for free into their terminal. So it's
Will they remove the car rental places on Airport Boulevard? Are you going to be in two spots, or ultimately
that's the
it's to be-
vision. The
that's
vision
the
is to
vision.
consolidate them
That's-
all in one
That's a
spot.
good idea, actually.
That is a
Yeah.
very good idea. Currently, because you are working with the homeless population, and we know so many of them by names, including their dogs, right? Don't we just love Mojo? Don't we just love Brownie? Yes, we do. How many people would you say are living in there now?
Yeah. So currently, I think
It's hard to count, right?
The Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, LAHSA, they do a count every year. And so back in January, those count numbers were right around 400, that about 400 people live there. Now, and I'll talk more about sort of why these numbers have decreased. Now, again, like you said, it is hard to get a solid number. We think somewhere around 150, 100.
Okay.
There's been a significant reduction in the amount of people who live there.
And you had mentioned, Russ, that even people driving by aviation wouldn't necessarily know that. I mean, as the apartment buildings started going down at aviation, you could see more into the community and see, whoa, what are those? Those are blue tents in there.
Right.
And then you could see that people started coming in. The Shakey's that's there on Arbor Vitae was built when I was living there as a kid, and it's still a functioning restaurant. I know you even have had events there, right, Russ?
Yeah, we had a fundraiser,
Right.
a Share Hope fundraiser there. We'll probably have another one in 2018.
Nice.
And my daughter's softball team has their fundraiser there as well.
Right.
And I guarantee you none of the parents know there's a homeless encampment across the street.
You know, speaking of your daughter, I know that when I first met Hilly, it was because all her softball team was there volunteering, and the volunteer efforts that go on surrounding Share Hope USA has been dramatic. And I know for me, that's been some of the most emotional parts for me. And I thought maybe you might want to just give a shout out to a couple of these particular angels.
Yeah, well, you put it actually in a perfect context, because they are. Share Hope doesn't do this by themselves. It's not, Simon is he's the think tank to think up, let's do this. But it really takes a community to make massive changes. And so, we have people like Angel from Cali Styles, who is located down in Santa Ana, and he drives him and his family to wherever we are anywhere in Southern California to cut the homeless hair. We have Dottie and Cynthia from Groomingdale's. They bring a grooming van and they park and they groom all the pets of all the homeless, and it's amazing.
They put a little kerchief on them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they're
So
very
cute.
kind. They're very sensitive
Yeah, it's
to.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
They
And-
love all the pets there.
Yeah, and then we have groups that come and do, we try to serve hot meals when we have feeding events, and we love to get the community involved. So we have groups, women's groups, church groups, any groups that want to come
know.
and to provide food, hot food that's prepared and kept hot on site, so that it, and it's an amazing thing. I think, though, personally, and I'm sure that you would agree, Marsha, I think that the haircuts is an absolutely amazing transformation. And so when you sit a homeless person down into a seat and you actually, they're being pampered for 20 minutes and it's the touch, they're touching them, they're getting their haircut. Some of them haven't had their haircut in years, and they sit down, and so I try to get a lot of before and after, and they stand taller and they're smiling, and because they actually feel human.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do at Share Hope USA is we try to get across to our community is that, too often we label them as, well, they're just homeless. They're homeless. And so, yes, they are. But that is the status that they're in. It is not
describe them
they
who
are.
they are.
So we like to call them human.
Right.
Not homeless, because that's exactly what they are. So our whole efforts and everything we try to do is to bring them some humanity and try to help them. Here's a hot meal. Here's some clothes. Here's a haircut. Here, your pets can get taken care of, and you walk away feeling more human than you did when they got there.
Right.
And the volunteers feel more human that they were able to provide that. And so it's a feel-good environment for everyone, and
You
we
bet.
absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But I believe you guys from the airport have done some things too. Tell me if I'm wrong. Were you responsible for bringing the drinking fountains into the?
That was amazing.
Yeah, well, so there's a task force that the city, the city and county and the airport and Councilmember Mike Bonnen's office have all kind of cobbled together. It's called the Manchester Square Task Force. It's not the most original name, but kind of sums it up. And as I'm listening to Russell talk about all the different partners you have to make this possible, exact same thing when it comes to the task force. No one city department, no one county entity, no one nonprofit could do this alone.
Absolutely.
So we really try to leverage each other's resources.
Yes.
And so the city said to us, we want to be, it's the hot summer months, and again, back in the vein of restoring some humanity to people. People need access to water.
Right.
They need access to showers and
And you bring in
haircuts
those
and-
mobile showers, don't you?
I mean, it's definitely a partnership with Mike Bonnen's office. I got to
Right.
give some credit. And Lava May, they're the
Yes.
mobile shower company.
Yeah,
they
they're
come
amazing.
twice a week. They're literally the nicest people I've ever met, too. And so, yes, we've got the water, we've got the showers, we've got amazing partners, and the partners you guys bring in. And then we also want to make sure our services are focused as much around housing as we possibly can.
Right.
Because just to touch on some more of the kind of common misconceptions,
Yes, please.
there's this idea that people who are living on the streets are never going to be successful in housing, or it's just impossible, and we should just kind of accept that that's where they will remain for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And I can tell you in the the years of doing this work, and I'm sure Simon, I'm sure you guys talking to the folks you've talked to, it's absolutely not true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They have dreams, they have hopes, they have aspirations for what their
Right.
life will look like after Manchester
Right,
Square.
exactly. We try to express to those who don't know and have never really touched homelessness to understand that no one said when they were 5 years old, when I grow up, I'm going to be homeless.
Yeah. Nope.
No one says that.
No.
It is a symptom of a bigger problem that causes this, and so it's the community that needs to put it back together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think too, the number one reason people are homeless is because they can't afford housing.
Yep.
That's the number one reason. There's all sorts of misconceptions about, it's because they want to be out there, and it's because they're all drug addicts, or they're all this. And I think you said it best. They're not the homeless. They're not one
Right.
homogenous group of people.
Right.
They're all different.
And if we're honest, we would say that there is some people that are homeless that say, well, I want to be here.
Right.
And there is a small percentage that do have substance abuse issues.
Yeah.
But if you were to categorize all the homeless into either one of two things, I want to be there, and or they have substance issues, that it's just you're misdiagnosing what the actual problem is. I agree with you, absolutely.
Yeah.
Has it been your experience that there are more men than women in these circumstances? How have you found that to divide out?
Yeah, across LA County, there are more men on the streets than there are homeless, but a silent, growing majority are elderly women. That has risen 55% since
Wow.
2013. It is women who are being priced out of homes. It is widows. It is Social Security checks, which can be less than $1,000,
Right.
barely cover any rent in the
Right.
city any longer. So
They find themselves.
Yeah. So there's a lot of focus on the growing population of women. But yeah, and to boil it down to Manchester Square, there certainly are, there's more men than there are women, which is reflective, again, of the makeup in LA County.
Right.
And I think the more you're involved in this issue, you learn a lot about what you thought a homeless person was and what
Yeah.
an actual homeless person feels.
Right.
I know that Simon's learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
Is one of the other the task force that come into Manchester Square a spade and neuter? Do they bring in neutering services? Or is that did I have that wrong?
Yeah, no. Well, so again, the city and the county, as I'm sure everyone is here, there's lots of political will right now to talk about homelessness and address it in a strategic way. So every city department is trying to pilot a special project or do something different. So instead of trying to set up free spay and neuter or vaccine clinics at actual clinics in other areas, they're trying to bring the services to folks who are homeless. So we did have city animal services come.
That's really nice.
They did spay and neutering for about five or six animals, just
great.
as like a pilot, trying
Sure.
trying
See
stuff
what
out.
works, yeah.
Absolutely. And those, I've already mentioned two of those dogs that
Brownie, Mojo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, not only do we know it's Brownie, but we know it's Dana's Brownie, and Mojo we know belongs to Joe.
Joe, yeah.
Yep.
And those dogs are really important, and I think part of the condition, I know in speaking to Dana, they're not going anywhere without their dogs,
Nope.
and that becomes yet another issue,
Sure.
because it's who they love and what loves them
their
back.
family.
It
I mean,
is their
yeah.
family. So
Yeah.
I know that's another condition in solving this. And it's not just in Manchester Square that Share Hope has been. Just a week ago yesterday, we were out. Where were we? We were in Carson, right,
Carson.
Simon?
Yeah.
And we've been to where are some of the other places we've been? Do you recall?
Of course.
We were in
Santa
Anaheim.
Santa Ana.
In
Yeah,
Anaheim.
Anaheim.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. Maybe you have the answer to this. Because I was just in there a week ago Sunday in Manchester Square with my friend Leah, and what I seem to notice is there seems to be less and less tents and more vehicles. Or would you say it's about half and half? What would you say?
Well, so people living in cars, there's definitely that is a really tough number to track. It can be fluid,
right.
So people come and go. The oversized vehicles, that is something we've actively been tracking. I think at its max, it was something like 70 oversized vehicles used to park in Manchester Square, and that's because it was legal, it was allowed. Whereas many parts of the city, it's not legal and it's
Right.
not allowed because of new ordinances. But just overdoing consistent, regular daily outreach to folks. There's now about 18 RVs that are remaining in
Okay.
Manchester Square. So
Okay.
as far as other vehicular homelessness, like living in cars, that's a harder number.
Right, because
yeah.
they might be here one week and
Yes.
gone the next.
Yeah.
And the few times that we've been there, we have definitely seen a police
Yeah. They drive by.
They do. And what
check
have
it out.
you thought about that, Simon? Because you've noticed them.
Yeah, well, it'd be okay for them to drive by, but if they were to stop us, I'd get kind of, I don't know the word. What is it?
Nervous?
Uncomfortable?
Yeah, nervous,
Uncomfortable.
uncomfortable, yeah.
Yes.
You know, I find that, you know, every time we have an event, we have the police tend to drive by, and I just tend to go out and shake hands and introduce myself. And
Me
and
too.
they've been, at least at Manchester Square, have been so nice.
I would agree. They have been really nice.
What would be better is if they stay around and check if anything happens. Not to stop us, but to see if anything happens.
Good idea.
See
And
what I mean?
I'd love to pick up on that point. I know. I
Let's-
think we're probably going to a break, but I'd love to talk
We're
more
gonna
about that.
let's talk about that when we
Yeah.
come back, because Timberlake's taking us out when we can't stop the feeling. We come back. Let's pick that right up. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and hosts of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Marsha Wietecha, inviting you to join me every Monday, 1 p.m. Pacific, for Born to Talk, where conversations plus connections equals community. This is the heart of my show each week as my guests share their stories, from nonprofits, authors, sports figures, travel experts, and much more. If you have a story to tell, I want to share it. Don't forget to tune in to Born to Talk every Monday, 1 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. And you can watch live on Facebook and Twitter. If you missed the live show, check out my website, borntotalkradioshow.com, where you can watch on demand. Born to Talk every Monday, 1 p.m. Pacific, where conversations plus connections equals community. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
There's nothing rich folks love more than going downtown and slumming it with the poor. They pull up in their carriages and gawk at the students in the common just to watch them talk. Take Philip Schuyler.
For those of you that live in Los Angeles, maybe you've had the great fortune, as I have, to go see Hamilton. It is
So jealous.
unbelievable. And you know, the good thing about this was it's part of my package as a subscriber to Pantages. So I didn't pay the exorbitant costs
Wow.
that other people
gosh.
paid. You know,
Lucky,
it's-
lucky.
I'm so
very
jealous.
lucky. It's so cool. I loved it. It was brilliant. So anyway, so back we were talking about the police presence, and I liked what
Yeah.
you had to say, Simon.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe you could continue that conversation, Christina.
No, I love that you brought up the police, because I don't think we can actually talk about street homelessness without mentioning law enforcement. They play a role in it all across the city, and frankly all across the nation, because they're the inadvertent first responders. They are the on the front lines, addressing any issues that come up when someone is homeless, and how that might collide with law enforcement. I think the airport is pretty lucky in that it has its own police department. It's pretty massive too, and pretty well resourced. And so what they did is they assigned a homeless unit to Manchester Square. And so I don't know, you guys may notice when you go there, you see the same officers time and
Yeah.
time again.
In fact,
Yeah.
when we were there, they said they gave us their email address and
Yeah.
said, email us when you're going to have an event, so that we can know you're going to be here, which is absolutely unlike any other location that we ever
Yeah.
go to.
Yeah.
So it's not so much a harassing as it is, we're glad you're here. Let us help you. Which is great.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't mention they're part of the Manchester Square Task Force. They know the people who live in that area by name. They know Joe, and they know Shelley, and they know these folks because they've been in that same area for over a year. And what's great is they work with the outreach teams who are part of the task force. PATH, People Assisting the Homeless, is kind of our main outreach team. They are there day in and day out working with folks.
I didn't know that's what PATH stood for. People Assisting the Homeless. I didn't know that. That there is that presence. And you know, I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that one of the other things that happens at our feeding events is we are also connected to another fabulous guy named Paul Reed from Passion. And Paul, we love Paul. And Paul was
Paul's
also
a
a
great guy.
guest on our show. And he loves animals. So he brings a different component. He brings pet food. You know, so and then he also knows people, and we know people, and they assemble hygiene kits because a toothbrush is pretty important to somebody that doesn't have one, you know? Not to mention Kleenex and shampoo. Underwear, socks. You know,
wipes,
people that don't know too much about the homeless condition, if you were to ask a homeless person if I could just give you one thing, they're going to say socks. They want socks. And my gosh, you can go to Target or Walmart or wherever you go, Costco,
99-cent store.
99-cent store, and buy socks.
Buy socks, give them to someone.
Just give them. Keep them in your car, right, Simon? You could be driving by and see somebody with a sign, and maybe you don't have anything to hand them, but socks, it's not like a water bottle. You can just hand them a package of socks. It's the greatest gift of all. And
the Westchester Playa Neighborhood Council, actually, the homeless subcommittee, came out to a few of our, we do similar events, Homeless Connections events that you guys do. They came and they passed out dog food and lunches from Subway, which I think they paid for out of kind of their own pocket.
Right.
But again, just because they want to be part of the larger efforts and they care about this cause a lot. So,
Corner
Burger.
Corner Burger.
Yeah.
And where do you get your tacos?
Del
Del Taco.
They're just. I mean, it's pretty hard to say no to you, Simon, to be perfectly honest with you. If you were to ask me to do something,
I say no all the time.
No. But I mean,
When it comes to Sure Hope, I'm the boss of him.
Yeah.
yes, that's right. You are.
That's the only time he'll ever be the boss of me.
That's okay because
That's
you
funny.
do it well. So, you know, I'm all in favor of that.
As long as he's kind, which he is.
He is kind. Speaking of kindness, we've got to talk about, this isn't a homeless issue. This is another be good, be kind issue.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about Play-Doh. And I don't know how many people played with Play-Doh when they were a kid. My kids play with them.
I have a whole box of it.
You
I
do.
love Play-Doh.
Why?
It's very therapeutic.
What?
It is.
Yeah.
It is very therapeutic.
Like you put it in balloons and just start squeezing everything.
There you go.
Yeah.
People
Homemade
do that at
stress
school.
balls.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you go.
It's a
Homemade
totally a
stress ball.
thing.
That's truly the case. So why did I bring up Play-Doh and you, Simon? What's the deal behind the Play-Doh?
Well, we do this event and it's called the Play-Doh Drive, and my whole school district did this. We signed the whole Lawndale school district to do the Play-Doh Drive. Some of them have contests, some of them don't. They would just collect Play-Doh and give it to the classes and everything. And we would donate it all to the Children's Hospital of LA, and they would be super happy for it. And
why Play-Doh as opposed to books?
well, because Play-Doh is the only thing that the Children's Hospital cannot disinfect. So once the kids touch it, they can keep it forever, like a memory.
Nice. So it's really significant, isn't it?
Unlike all the other board games or toys that they have in the toy
Because
room.
of germs, right?
Yeah.
So you've done this 2 years, right? Do you remember
Yes.
how many cans of Play-Doh you raised in the first year?
We raised 5,000 containers of Play-Doh.
Okay, and that was in 2016.
Yes.
But that wasn't good enough for you, right? You said, well, if we can raise 5, can't we raise more? So what happened in 2017? How many cans did you raise? Were donated.
11,800.
Oh my
That was
goodness.
11,800. Nearly 12,000 cans of Play-Doh. Now, did you hand carry those all into Children's Hospital LA? Oh, how did you
Just
get them
imagine.
there?
Well, again, we do this in partnership with many different people. So, almost 12,000 containers, that equivalent to about 3.5 pallets of Play-Doh,
Yeah.
stacked about 6 feet tall. And so it's a lot of Play-Doh. So,
Yes, it is.
you know, the first year we loaded it all in the back of our car, and it was piled from the snow.
Yeah.
There was no room for anybody else. And we took it and unloaded. This year that clearly we couldn't do that. So we reached out and said, who can help us? This is what we have going on. Who can help us? And so Rock and Roll Movers stepped up and said, we'll give you a truck and 2 guys for the day. And it's an absolutely amazing. They came up, we loaded it up, we took it to Children's Hospital, and we unloaded it. So with the goal he has for 2018,
I
we're
can
probably
hardly
gonna need
wait.
2
What is
trucks.
it?
Yeah.
22,000.
You want to double. You're just going to keep
Yeah.
doubling it. And why not, right?
Keep doubling it until we can get them to a whole year's supply, or
Wouldn't that be so great?
yeah,
So-
because
That'd be awesome.
the Play-Doh runs out really, really quick
Yeah.
at the Children's Hospital. Like the first year, that only lasted them 3 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, and I always say, look, things happen right when they're supposed to happen. And so when we dropped off our Play-Doh, they had literally ran out for the last can 1 week previously.
Whoa, that's
And so
cool.
it was perfect timing.
It sure
So,
was.
you know, what we say as an organization that we're not giving Play-Doh,
We're giving smiles.
Yes.
And so each Play-Doh represents to us a smile to a sick child, and so that's what we're giving.
Yeah.
So we're looking for 22,000 is a tall order, so we're looking for any schools, after-school programs that would love to partner with us so that we can bring the program to a different school and a different program, and we can just, you know, hopefully blow it
Grow
out
it.
of the park. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might just mention at this time, because we're wearing these shirts, but for anybody that wants to follow along, Share Hope USA is all one word. It's just sharehopeusa.com. And on your page, besides your Facebook page, which we're talking about, you have events. There's all kinds of things that
Yeah.
people can click on. They can donate. They can donate through Amazon. There's all kinds of ways
Right.
that we can accept donations.
The easiest way is probably just through the website.
There you go,
Yeah.
through that website. What month do you do the Play-Doh drive? I forgot. Is it in the spring?
It's in May.
May.
Yeah.
The
All
whole
right.
month of May is Play-Doh.
The whole month of May. So you'll be promoting it again next May.
Yeah, in fact, it's already up, and with this many Play-Doh, we're already going to start promoting it now.
You got to get LAUSD on board
Yeah.
with that.
I know,
somehow.
that would be
they're-
so-
You know,
that's
it's funny because
massive.
we just ran the 5K for United Way this last weekend,
Yes.
and
we
so
were
I
there.
made a really good
Yeah.
a really good introduction. I introduced myself to an after-school program that feeds around 16,000 kids in the LAUSD district.
Oh, wonderful.
So if I can't get to the district, because there's a lot of red tape with districts, the back door is through the after-school program.
That's
so that's what
terrific.
we're going to start
Incredible.
trying to do now.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Speaking of red tape, for those, that's a perfect segue. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
As voters, we voted for Proposition H and Measure HHH. And how, maybe you could just give people that
Yeah.
aren't from Los Angeles, and even those of us that live here and voted for it, just a little bit of a background and how that plays a part in this.
Absolutely, yeah. So I can give you some broad strokes on what those measures aim to achieve and kind of where they are today. So Proposition HHH was a voter-approved measure passed last November, and it is a $1.2 billion bond that aims to create 10,000 units of permanent supportive housing, which is a type of housing for people who are chronically homeless, been on the streets for a long time, will probably need a supportive living environment for the rest of their lives. Over the next 10 years, Proposition HHH aims to bring 10,000 units to LA County, which is huge because the city at this point would only be able to finance 3,000 units over a 10-period time. So it's massive. It's
is.
really going to step it up. And I think what it really does is brings home the point that the only solution to homelessness is housing.
Right.
That is the only way to stop this cycle or recidivism of homelessness is a permanent solution.
There are not enough beds.
There are
for-
not enough shelter beds. There's not enough permanent housing, units, and we need to fix that. This is a very unaffordable city to live in.
Right.
We all know that. So it was a great feat that this was accomplished
Yes.
by voters. Now the hard work begins, right? Because I think in theory, a lot of people are for housing for the homeless. Now, when it comes to presenting a development in your own community, that's when, I mean, I'm going to be honest, people do have different emotions around
Sure.
that. The idea that, you know, it's that sort of that NIMBYism, right? Not in my backyard, it is a real challenge that the city is faced with right now. City Council approved $85 million of this $1.2 billion bond back in June for 9 projects that will yield 615 units. Which
That's
is
good.
incredible. Now they got to find the siting.
Right.
They have to
Where's
find
the
where
property?
they're going to build them. Yeah.
Right.
And so, so that's a big one. Measure H is the quarter-cent sales tax that was county voted on. County Angelina's voted on in March of this year. It will generate $315 million worth of revenue to support homeless service programs over, again, a 10-year period of time. So Prop HHH is the housing, Measure H is the services, and combined, they are really the answer to addressing
Right.
this. I think it's important to remember we as community members, the will is strong, but I think our patience runs short. And homelessness is this sort of 30 years in the making issue we have now, and it's going to take some time to unravel it. So Measure H, those are just kind of getting off the ground right now. What I will tell you, what you can see the product of Measure H doing right now in Manchester Square is an additional outreach team.
They didn't have that before, did they?
They didn't have that before. There wasn't the funding for it. There wasn't, the resources for it. And now there is. And again, when we talk about street homelessness, it's consistent efforts, just like Share Hope USA is doing, just like what People Assisting the Homeless is doing, just what St. Joseph Center is doing now.
Right.
Bringing consistent, regular outreach services to the people on the streets that, again, are focused on housing and helping them figure out a way out of homousness.
Right.
Did you want to add something to that?
Nope.
Okay.
It's
Well,
perfect.
what I was going to say is there have to be some success stories along the way that you have been involved in. I would love to know some of those stories that have been wonderful. And
Yeah, so I can share. I'll let him remain anonymous.
Yes.
We'll call him Mr. Smith. He
Okay.
is a gentleman who's lived in an RV in Manchester Square for about 3 years.
All right.
And he was on fixed income, getting about $900 a month. And when he budgeted out what it cost for him to live, housing was out of his reach.
Right.
So he had this RV, he parked in Manchester Square, and there he remained. He also was not going to leave because he was taking care of a friend who lived in a neighboring RV who was very, very ill, chronic illness mixed with substance abuse issues. He's an elderly gentleman, just hanging on by a hair, really. And he was refusing to leave as well and refusing to get help. Eventually, something tipped those scales, and his friend finally said yes to the outreach teams.
Oh, wonderful.
And he said, yes, I will go to an assisted living facility, which is really what he needs because he's very, very sick. So finally, he said yes to that. So once his friend was out of the equation, Mr. Smith was finally like, okay, I'm ready to start thinking about my own housing
Sure.
plan. What
That's
can
amazing.
you do to help? And PATH was able to connect him to affordable housing unit, which they're kind of like gold. They're kind of hard to come
bet.
upon. Yeah. And so at the last Connections event we had, he went to every single table and was showing his house keys, just waving them. He was like,
man.
"I'm getting out of here. I'm
That's
moving
awesome.
on." Yeah, and it was really incredible. And he was one of those people. I think we've heard folks say, "Oh, he'll never get housing. He'll never be successful." But here he is on his way. So
That's great. We certainly do hope that will be the case for the folks that are living there right now.
For everybody, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What has it meant to you, Simon, to really be involved in this organization? Not many young people of your age have started a nonprofit organization and been dedicated to it. How do you balance all of these things? Being a student, I know you like sports, and I know you love to draw. And how do you do all of this, Simon?
Well, it's all about baby steps. You have to take one step at a time, go up and up and up. And if everybody can do that, you can accomplish anything.
I feel like those words came right from your father's headset, right to your headset, and
Well,
right out of your
You
mouth.
know, we try to teach that to both of our kids. As parents, you try to teach your children that anything is possible. And I truly believe that. And I think that if you look at the whole picture, well, I want to do this, I want to climb that mountain. And that might look pretty hard to do. But if you just look at the step right in front of you, you can accomplish the mountain.
Yeah.
You can accomplish the 5 mountains behind it. And so I think that's really what we're trying to teach our children. And as an organization, anybody that wants to help, it's not hard. You first have to want to do it. The second step is just the step out your front door.
Absolutely. Put a smile on.
Yeah.
We're listening to a really great song. We're going to take a very, very quick, short station break. This is called Homeless. This is by Ed Sheeran. And so stay tuned, everybody. We're going to be right back.
Thank you for tuning into LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network, original reality radio, and crafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. Stay tuned.
Okay, everybody. Well, welcome back. I need to tell you about next week's guest because much like Russ and Simon are returning, it's almost been 1 year to the day.
Yeah.
My guest next week is actually 1 year to the day when he was on my show, and his name is Anthony Freeman. And as I have mentioned about the YMCA through the shows, I met Anthony when he was a member of the YMCA while I was the membership director there. He's a very athletic guy, and he's gone from being a pro BMX cyclist and a tremendous athlete in Inglewood, where he's in the Hall of Fame at that high school. He's also a wellness coach. And we're going to be talking about, since the holidays are right around us, and I do want to make sure that you all have a fabulous Thanksgiving this coming Thursday. We're going to talk about wellness as it applies to relationships and health and goals. And I'm looking forward to sharing my microphone with him next week. But in the meantime, before we get out of here, and we start thinking about those sandwiches that your grandma's making for you for Thanksgiving. Sounded pretty darn good to me. I just was wondering if you had any final thoughts, and I wanted to ask you, Christina, specifically.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think Simon said it so beautifully about taking baby steps and how that's the first part of starting any big project. That's really what the airport's looking to do with Manchester Square and with the issue of homelessness. It really is just tackling it step by step. And just incrementally and consistently and frankly relentlessly continuing to provide services that are focused on housing to the folks who live out in the square, and doing it with our partners. There's no way the airport can do it alone, so we really rely on our partners and our community members to help us out with that. And we're hoping by mid 2018, we've really relocated everyone to a permanent solution, if not permanent, at least on their way to housing. And that's really the vision here.
And I was really happy that you said that, because I was curious about that kind of end date plan. We've got something coming up in just a couple of weeks, don't we?
Yeah, we do. On the 10th of December, we have our holiday event in Manchester Square.
Yeah.
So anybody out there that wants to come by, wants to bring some donated items, we're
Water.
water, anything.
We're welcome.
Yeah, everybody's welcome to that event, and to any one of our events that you see that you want to be involved in. If you, like I said before, if you have your child in an after-school program, or you're in a school and you say, this is great for my child's class, let me know. We can adopt this program into anybody's school. And if anybody wants to be involved in partnering with Share Hope USA, we're ready for you to come and join us in this trek we're doing to change the world.
Yeah.
And if anybody is listening that has an ear to Ellen DeGeneres.
Ellen, where are you?
Ellen, you want to have Simon on your show. Talk about a good deed and how you like to do good things. So trust me, you can go to my website, which is borntotalkradioshow.com. You can go to my Facebook page, Born to Talk Radio Show. It's on Facebook. If you have a way to get to Ellen or Oprah or anybody else that you think would be
Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey, absolutely.
Yeah.
Didn't you go to his show?
We did, yeah.
Yeah. So, we want the word to get out there.
Right.
And I want to just say personally, because I am involved with Share Hope, how grateful I am for how you are bringing humanity Christina, to this area that was my home. A lot of my friends that are watching the show today that went elementary school with me, we know what it felt like to grow up in that neighborhood. We probably could have never imagined that it would be the neighborhood it is today,
Yeah.
but it's the reality. And so to bring humanity and compassion to people that are really suffering says an awful lot about you personally, because I sense that in your person. You've got that background. You're a mom. You care. And that means a lot. So I think that it's a great partnership. I think having you join us today has been great.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
And to my Share Hope buddies over here.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. And to all of you listening, I hope that your Thanksgiving is meaningful, that you are surrounded by people that you love and that love you, and that you just have a beautiful day. And Rich, thanks for running the boards. My buddy Alex is off the camera right now. Thanks what you're doing. And I'll look forward to seeing you with Anthony Freeman next week, because he's going to be talking about fitness and I'm going to be talking about stuffing. So, so until
As you
next,
should.
Good
as I
timing,
should.
yeah.
So until next time, everybody, have a great week, and I'll see you next week.
To take you out of this place, someone you could lend a hand in return for grace. It's a beautiful day. Sky falls, you feel like it's a beautiful day. To really get away on the road, but you've got no destination in the mind. In a maze of her imagination, your love is down. Even if that doesn't ring true, you've been all over, and it's been all over you.
Thank you for tuning into LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network, original reality radio, and crafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. Stay tuned.